I could eliminate the entire distribution cost structure, which is generally 40% of most of these physical good industries. And that was so compelling an idea that I started investigating, and it kept proving out. Every data point supported the thesis or the hypothesis that we could create a DoorDash for on-demand localized manufacturing. Essentially, we're deglobalizing or relocalizing supply chains, because if you can do that, you can extract 40% of the revenue value that's typically wasted on distribution, bring jobs and business back to our hometowns, and de-risk projects, make it easier because it's closer.
To me, the big win here is the accessibility to everybody. So not only to the potential homeowner that is curious and wants to go online and say, yeah, I want to quasi-design my own kitchen, or I want to build a set of cabinets for my workshop or for my garage, whatever it may be. That's amazing. That's, just to be able to have that workflow through direct to a potential client that happens to be a homeowner is one thing. But on the architecture side, it's really interesting because we have the ability to dial in things to a finer level.
Baru, okay, we sell cabinets, but our main activity is eliminate waste. We're creating a lean manufacturing around a network.
There is a perception that custom design equals a great expense, and it doesn't have to be that way. So there are lots of opportunities out there to cut through the fat, to short circuit some of these things and find efficiencies.
All right, welcome back to Constructive, everybody. Special in-person episode this time. We are here in the studio. Why don't you go ahead and introduce where we're at?
So
here?
This is the Olzak Group and Olzak Build offices. We just opened up this new space in gallery space probably 4 weeks ago now. So it's fresh, it's new. Our tree is quasi still alive, and we're happy to be here. And so thanks for coming.
Cool. And Tino, we've met before in person, but give us a background of what you're doing now.
Yeah, so essentially, we're deglobalizing or relocalizing supply chains, because if you can do that, you can extract 40% of the revenue value that's typically wasted on distribution, bring jobs and business back to our hometowns, and de-risk projects, make it easier because it's closer.
How did you first, we talked a little bit about the pain point that you realized, and talk about that journey. Like, where did you first see that this was a need, and how did you start to address it? Let's start at the beginning.
So at the beginning, I was born a creative, so an artist. I got art scholarships out of high school. I spent 12 years in the advertising industry. And so I'm born with this creativity. But my last career was CFO roles. And so I acquired a bunch of these corporate management tools. A few years ago, I tried to get a bookcase for my house. I couldn't find it, and I discovered to get one made was a medieval process. That was curious enough that when I came off my last CFO role and started looking at this industry of furniture making and cabinet making, I discovered that it was never going to evolve on its own because there are too many people involved. It was globalized, yada, yada, yada. And simultaneously, I discovered there are thousands of underused CNC machines, these digital cutting machines all over the country. Highly underused because they were more productive than the owner needed the production for. When I discovered that I realized that, oh my gosh, if I could create a virtual factory out of these, if I could translate desire into machine instructions for a local machine, I could eliminate the entire distribution cost structure, which is generally 40% of most of these physical good industries. And that was so compelling an idea that I started investigating, and it kept proving out. Every data point supported the thesis or the hypothesis that we could create a DoorDash for on-demand localized manufacturing.
Yeah, you were talking about the goal here is really focused on the owner or the consumer of these, where we want to give them a cheaper, better product. And it sounds like we can. Let's talk a little bit about how cabinets work now and how you're thinking of this, right?
Yeah, so the cabinet industry is, there are about 8 billion in large factories in the United States produced at the manufacturer sales level. About 3 billion is imported. And then the rest of the 8 plus 3, 11, the rest of the 9 billion is these tiny little factories. I mean, if you look at like the revenue slope, it asymptotes really quickly. So you got all these tiny little factories that are inefficient at the smallest level because they're all a lot of manual processes, a lot of, take a drawing and iterate around that drawing until the customer says, yes, I want that. That's the inefficiency is what causes them to be low throughput and expensive. But what we're doing is we're building that sales funnel that outputs from e-commerce. It outputs machine instructions and a bill of materials so that we can send both machine instructions and the kit of materials to a local manufacturer. They get additional machine utilization for the costs of electricity, screws and glue, and labor. So they're earning really high margins, even though we're selling at essentially half of market price.
Yeah, it's awesome. It seems like a win-win for everybody. It just, tell me, I think there might be some people listening that don't even know what a CNC machine is. Do you think this would help for us to kind of explain?
Yeah, certainly. They're digital manufacturing machines. They run on code. In this case, they are cutting large pieces of panel wood into smaller pieces so you can assemble it into cabinets and furniture. And these machines they're so ubiquitous, prevalent. They earn their break even with 1 hour of use per day relative to hiring a worker. And so that's why there's so many of these machines. It's like our laser printers, we only use them a minute a day, and yet we all have them because it's a more efficient way of doing things.
I think we'll jump back and forth, but Zach, do you want to talk about like why this is attractive from an architecture standpoint?
Well, I can think of it from a builder perspective and an architecture perspective. I mean, to me, the big win here is the accessibility to everybody. So not only to the potential homeowner that is curious and wants to go online and say, yeah, I want to quasi-design my own kitchen, or I want to build a set of cabinets for my workshop or for my garage, whatever it may be. That's amazing. That's, just to be able to have that workflow through direct to a potential client that happens to be a homeowner is one thing. But on the architecture side, it's really interesting because we have the ability to dial in things to a finer level. Usually going through the design process with a client from day one all the way through, you've built up and you've imagined the space, whether it be a kitchen or an entire house or a landscape or even, to a larger extent, urban planning type of situation. But the ability to design something and dial it in to a level of specificity, spit it out through a web interface. It goes to a local CNC machine. And then either A, you could receive that material back, whether it's to myself or to another builder or a fabricator and assemble it ourselves, or go to local labor to where they can actually take it on and fulfill the order, deliver it to you, is an amazing opportunity. Here in the Bay Area, this is a highly creative space, and which is unique, I think, to a lot of other folks and locations across the country. There's a lot of really talented woodworkers and craftsmen that are out there. So to be able to leverage some of their abilities and really make use of the expertise, the craft of putting casework and cabinets and furniture and millwork together is one thing. Usually those are the guys or gals that are not so interested in saying, I just want to build cabinet carcasses all day long. They want to do the fun stuff. So in a way, this also contributes to that sort of creative mentality and sharing the workload of allowing sort of the detailed nature of cabinets to be processed and shipped and organized and sort of thought of and then executed at a very quick, I would say, expedited pace and contribute to a project as a whole in a much more expedited way.
Reminds me of like a broader issue our entire industry has, which is people often say every construction project is a snowflake and nothing's repeatable in our industry. And I feel like you're addressing this kind of from two standpoints because yes, cabinets, you were explaining like people want custom, but at the same time, you can create automation within customization. Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah. So our approach is, it starts with the premise if you can connect the two endpoints of value, what I'll call an expression of desire and a payment and a local machine's instructions, creating that hard digital link eliminates all other activity. And that's where the value is automatically extracted. And Baru, okay, we sell cabinets, but our main activity is eliminate waste. We're creating a lean manufacturing around a network. Yeah, we sell cabinets, we sell cabinet parts, but it'll also, we have 2 cabinet makers that are using our system to access the idle capacity, the machine capacity at our core manufacturer to essentially shift their current bottlenecks of not having enough labor to cut parts to an idle machine, and they're getting those parts at a similar cost than if they did it themselves with labor. And so we really want to be that orchestration layer, kind of like you as a manager, construction manager.
Do you think for an architecture firm, like that to me makes me think about sustainability too? If you're trying to make every part of a construction project more sustainable, you're also thinking about eliminating waste, right?
Yeah, and processes and workflows are certainly adaptable into more sustainable ideals as well. So
Are you looking
100%.
at every aspect you're designing that way? Like,
For sure. I mean, for us, we're design build. So we not only take on architecture projects for a typical architecture design bid build client, but we'll also provide the build services and construction management services for another architect. So we have the flexibility to sort of adapt to different project needs. But our go-to, where we see the fun, where we really enjoy ourselves being and engaging, is at a design build level. Because again, it's the sort of traditional methods of approaching a project, both on the design side and the build side, they're wasteful. I think the processes alone of just from everything that you learn in construction management school about how a project is supposed to work, and then how you learn the same processes through architecture school and how those processes are supposed to work, there's very little overlap. I mean, there's been this traditional thought of you come up with a design, you document it, you hand it over to a general contractor. They are the ones that are in charge of means and methods, and they're the one that execute the project. That would be really nice if you could figure out a way to start learning some of those things early on, so that way there's a little bit of an overlap. And we've found that if you take that overlap as early as you can, it allows you to fundamentally change the thought process and how you execute a build. And also allows us to be smart up front and think through some of the materials and methods and assemblies and processes that we would normally go through on the build side. We do that much earlier in the process with the client. So yeah, I think that there's huge opportunities here to be more mindful and thoughtful about how we approach projects, both at a single family level to a multifamily level, and I think at a commercial space too. So I'm hopeful that in the years to come, there's more opportunities and that this space is just going to expand and grow, and we'll be able to adapt and find new opportunities for clients and folks, and your industry in the construction management space will change too.
Cool. Yeah, to me, it's all about bringing joy back to our industry, some of the work that we hate to do. And a lot of the stuff we hate, it comes out of conflict that I think a lot of times from that design bid build, like the real separation from all those trades and overlapping with the design build method seems like it will have a lot of answers for us in that way. Do you guys want to talk about what you guys are currently working on together? Is there any like stories about saving time, money on projects yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think his approach as a creative, that normally when you delegate or when you hand off that process, you lose control. Well, on one of his cabinets that I saw, he had, the dimension was out to 4 decimals, one of those cabinets.
Precision can be a good thing, especially when it's, numerically controlled CNC machine. So
yeah, and so having that level of control is is awesome, because we're in the process of integrating our library into a design tool, so that this soon to be free offered design tool is good for your building permit, but it's already been tagged with a price and it's manufacturing ready. So one initial step is actually the entire process. And so control and the economics of process integration.
It's interesting, like when you can increase quality to that level or that precision too, you get more flexibility. Like I think a lot about prefab in the broader construction industry, and the complaint I hear in the field most often is like things got shipped here and they didn't fit and we had to send them back and get a new fabrication, It seems like doing it to that level of precision can eliminate some of those rework.
A lot of it is lead time too, because if you're if you have to order from overseas, that's a 3 to 4 month lead time. You have no idea even where the studs are going to go in a lot of projects. And so you end up with big fillers, or you end up with, we've shortened that lead time because because it's local. And and so that control, and part of it is the loss of control is because there are manual steps. And looking at these tiny little numbers and redlining them, revise and resubmit, it gets pretty tedious. And then, even sometimes the shop drawing doesn't reflect what's going on the floor, because the floor guy doesn't have time to look at all these, or inclination to look at all these little numbers.
I think you hit on an interesting point, which is the sort of more traditional RFI and submittal process and the review period. And I think we've had some fairly cursory conversations to this point about so the different layers of management that you would see in a typical single-family home out in the Bay Area and California in general. And I think what this gets to at its core is a simple interface and the simple ability to control results early on. An example, maybe this is a little bit too much of a tangent, but in the construction space, one of the biggest bottlenecks is estimating. If you get a project, doesn't matter if it's a small furniture piece or if it's a $20 million house or anything in between. The ability to reach out to a specific vendor, a supplier, a subcontractor to estimate and price that particular project, or even a scope or a portion of that project, it takes time. You're dependent on current supply and demand situations for that particular region. You're reliant upon the ability of that vendor or supplier to get back to you in a reasonable amount of time. You're completely dependent on the quality and skill of that particular individual to get back to you with meaningful numbers, meaning that they actually understand what the design is in front of them and they have interpreted it correctly. And then number 4, you're fighting against changing tide, meaning on the client side, there's always something that's evolving, right? Maybe that idea that's been in their head that you've already priced out has already changed. So by the time you get your first number back, they're already on to version 2.0. And so it creates this cyclical loop that delays the pre-construction services period of estimating. And I think one of the nice things about what Baru offers is this upfront cost possibility. So to be able to go in, even as a designer or an architect or even a contractor or builder in this case, saying you know what you have in front of you, you just now need to go find it, price it, and build it, you're able to look to see what that price is right away by entering a few numbers, establishing your parameters and your criteria in terms of what the sheet good is, what the material constraints are, how you want your assembly to be. Is it a face frame style cabinet? Is it a European style full access style cabinet? Being able to dial that in and see a price right then, right there, and to understand what portion of that is going to be related to freight or delivery costs gives you some upfront perception that I think would normally take days, if not weeks, if not months, depending on the scale of the project. So I think the benefit of that, working backwards in terms of a design process, is that you can then plug in ideas into the system. You can see immediately that one iteration of a design, say for a kitchen island or a peninsula or a bank of cabinets, is going to cost X in this material at this size. You can quickly do a second iteration and test it against 2 or 3 other variables, and you can quickly make a decision. You can't really go through that process in real time with a traditional mill worker or caseworker. So I think the ability to be able to do that is huge. And I think those are the levels of efficiencies that we need in our industry to take it away from the slow, mundane, heavy level management approach into a more efficient, streamlined approach where houses and projects are getting done faster and ultimately cheaper.
Yeah, and by moving that responsibility into a single point, it eliminates a lot of project risk. So the cabinet maker doesn't have to bake in a lot of risk from miscommunications or change orders that he or she cannot bill for. It's all been baked in up front. Well, with an e-commerce approach, there are no change order costs, self-service.
That helps a lot. What do you think? We were talking a little bit about, I want you to have an opportunity to like give advice to the rest of the industry, whether you're a cabinetry maker or a designer or a contractor. What are you learning that you feel like is really going to benefit the community at large?
Ultimately, it's about process automation. I understand that not everything can be hard linked, but to the extent that you can link the true value points, then all of the uncertainty and all of the manual work, all of the manual transcriptions and potential for sources of error just disappear. And so, it becomes very easy to estimate the cost and thus the price. Maybe there's a little risk premium, but it won't be a huge risk premium because it's been, it's like, how IKEA offloads the delivery and the installation services to the customer. To a certain degree, our process automation and that link to the production machine, we've offloaded that responsibility of getting the product order right to whoever's on the before the order's finalized. So that could be the designer, the contractor, the architect, the homeowner, but once they make that decision, then it's ready to produce. And because it's local, even if a mistake arises, like a door gets damaged, well,
That never happens.
well, when it does, it's easy to remedy because it's local.
What do you guys think about the future of our industry? Are you guys imagining things as you're learning these smaller automations, ways to like, what are you looking long term for our industry? What are some ways you think we can innovate?
I think at the core of innovation and workflows and processes, there is this hope and desire and aspiration, at least on our end, in this shop, of wanting to provide better design, more affordable design. I think that's the key word, is more affordable design to every homeowner, to everybody that wants to build a new space, for every cafe owner that wants the new sexy, cool cafe around the corner. There is a perception that custom design equals a great expense, and it doesn't have to be that way. So there are lots of opportunities out there to cut through the fat, to short circuit some of these things and find efficiencies. And I think Baru and what they're providing here is just one aspect of that in terms of the delivery on sort of case goods and other potential products. But yeah, I think it starts with the mentality, and it's finding solutions in other sectors of the market, in the construction space, in the design space. It'll be interesting to see sort of where AI goes and how some of those other tasks, particularly related around project management and estimating and understanding data sets from past projects, and how those can be useful in determining and leveraging the power of the computer to help guide and understand what something potentially might cost early on in a design phase. So yeah, at some point, the AI component, I think, will be of great assistance in terms of understanding what's possible.
You make me think about just our industry, because I feel like everyone has exposure to construction, if it's just you want to renovate your house, so everybody, I feel like the public perception of construction is relatively negative still. When I hear people outside of our industry talk about their renovation projects, they're just mad the contractor's taking so long and they don't really end up with what they want. And I am disappointed with that too, that perception. And I think little stories like these are like, hey, let's keep moving in that direction. And that's why I want to highlight stuff like this. But yeah, Tino, what do you think about the future? What are you targeting for your near future goals of how to go even further with this?
Well, we're working, we're starting with cabinets, but it's a digital manufacturing platform where we identify latent desire and engineer back to someone else's production assets that we can access. There's a ADU contractor and builder 2 miles from here who wants to expand their cabinet offering to include the plethora of available materials that they normally can't get except through a custom cabinet maker. So, Baru is all about supply chain and using idle equipment to maximize its use so that the owner of that asset benefits greatly. And those manufacturing economies of scale at a local level digitally benefits other ecosystem participants, whether they're channel partners, they're getting a trade discount, but we're also thinking about their lives. We want to schedule our production and align it with their construction schedule, because if we can deliver to the job site, they avoid multiple handling cycles, damage risk, packaging, yada, yada, yada. And so because that accounts for, I know that one business owner I spoke to, it accounted for 35% of his cost of goods sold. Just that localized warehousing so he can store it, because the stuff arrives randomly. So if we can deliver directly to the job site, that saves a ton of effort and cost and risk. Yeah, I mean, I look at things, I'm still a reformed CFO, and so I look at efficiency as inherently ethical. If you can eliminate waste, then you're conserving someone's sleep or other resources, and I think that's worth doing to the extent that you can. And if you can start thinking that way in terms of total ecosystem benefits, then it'll make us certainly have loyal customers if we keep doing right by them.
Yeah, I named this podcast Constructive because it just harkens like being helpful in the industry. And my dad always told me, like, if you're being lazy on a job, you're stealing from your boss. If you're being lazy on a project, you're stealing from the client too, And I think having that mindset is like, this is true. Like, this client hired me to get a project done, and if I'm not using my time efficiently, it's kind of stealing. And I think our industry has a problem with that, and we feel entitled to construction is too hard. You don't understand how hard it is. And I think we need to stop making that excuse.
Is it really that hard?
Good question.
But a lot of things are out of your control. Once it's out of your control and it's like you rely on someone else to perform, to all of those little things, they have a domino effect and they cascade.
Sure.
We've got a multifamily in the pipeline, and the nature of this project is it was going to be assembled on site. It was a hotel getting converted into affordable housing. So the plan was to assemble on site in a conference room and bring it up to the room. Well, with that, we were able to do things like gang cabinets together. So you eliminate the duplication of material between cabinets, and you made the installation of 3 boxes a 20-minute process where you hang it on the wall, you level 3 legs, and you clip on it, and as opposed to a 1-hour process. And that, it doesn't affect us, but it affects the construction and the build team significantly. And so, well, it did affect us because we were able to eliminate that duplication of materials. So we saved materials, saving cost and price.
As a downstream.
Yeah. And so we don't have any orthodoxy around this is the way we've always done it, We're using the decades of experience I've got on my team to innovate. A box is a box is a box. It could be 3 boxes.
I want to throw a little bit of a curveball because this is just something I've been thinking about a lot, and I wonder if it applies, but I've been thinking about people in our industry, not just thinking about the project, but the life cycle of the products we're installing. So in my case, a whole building. Like, I don't just want to build the building. I want to make sure it lasts 100 years.
Absolutely.
And I don't think a lot of people in our industry are thinking that way, but I imagine you two are.
2 ways. For every price level, we can increase the level of quality. On a project that we delivered in Greensboro, South Carolina, the homeowner had priced it from Lowe's. So I went to Lowe's and I priced it. It was $16. And I ran it through our configurator at the similar quality level. It was $11. And so the customer went with us, but they upgraded the materials and they ended up getting what they wanted. But also I had the opportunity to speak at Swissnex about the circular economy. And, one of the potential byproducts of relocalizing supply chains is you can rationalize the materials used so that you can effectively recycle. Because if you're manufacturing in one place and distributing to customers in another place, you have materials that may not be recoverable because you can't recover junk or garbage. Okay. Whereas, I gave the example of in Boston, there may be 90,000 students every year who buy IKEA desks, use them for 8 months and throw them away. If in that scenario, if you can hyper-localize the manufacturing, then maybe you can overbuild components that you can reuse and release for 6 years. And that helps the entire ecosystem. but it has to be kind of like centrally controlled. Otherwise, you get the introduction of impurities into this ecosystem. Yeah, so the relocalization can have a bunch of subsidiary or byproduct benefits in the future.
Cool. Well, I really enjoyed it, guys. I want to give you guys a chance to plug something, give somebody a place to go to find you. LinkedIn,
Sure.
website.
Olzakgroup.com, olzakbuild.com. Come check us out. LinkedIn as well. Check us out on Instagram.
I'll put some links in the description as well, but
That'd be awesome.
My company is HelloBaru.com, and I can be contacted at Tino@HelloBaru.com. And I'm looking for collaboration partners of any kind.
thanks for doing this, guys.